I'm Catherine Calvert. I'm the Chief Market Officer. Chief Market Officer for Koros. No, only I call myself that still, but I'm working on it. And I am so thrilled to be able to be one of the sponsors. I felt like, speaking of getting invited to the big kids table, I talked to some of you about this last night, never make time for these things, right? As marketers, we're doing events, we're on the road, we're traveling, we're going to find our teams. And so at the very last minute, I canceled on the first one. And then it was 2 years ago. I was like, I'm doing this. I was pissed at my boss and my kids I'm going. Napa's right there. I can drive. Oh, come over here. Where were you? But I don't want to stand in front of my beautiful panelists. I am not being a marketer when I say it was transformative. So it meant so much to me, this concept of a market officer. And actually what they didn't say, but I'm going to say it because it rocked my world. This idea that Christine and Latney promote, that we're the only chief officer with ING. Kate talks about that too. It changed, like, where's this? What's this? Blah, 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 right? All the ing we have to do. So I've spent the 2 years since trying to do a little less ing. And I hope that it is as meaningful of an event as it is for you guys. So grateful to be here. So thank you. As a sponsor and a friend of Latney's, as we all are, a fall, better than being a Fokker, a friend of Catherine's. She asked, we talked about, should we do a panel? And the team actually brought this idea to me, product-led growth. And I think my first answer was like, product-led growth. I just talked to a headhunter about this, not a SIBA person, or Kate, of course. She would never do this. But what's your product-led growth story? And it was like, oh my God, I feel old. We're capitalizing another new thing. It's a trend. Like, what does that even mean? And so that was my first reaction. But she talked me into it, and she was so right, because what I have learned as I have dug into the topic is that whether you can be a capital PLG, product-led growth company, or not, it is A, a hot topic that we all need to be conversant in, and B, there are tenets that apply whether you can be the capital PLG or you are like me and spend most of your time in enterprise sales. But the key principles and tenets that Latney talked about around getting under the hood with your product, about the centrality of product market fit, that's all at the heart of what we're here to talk about. I have an amazing panel. So if I got nudged to come over here, I have my phone because I have a definition I want to read. Can I sit over here and we'll still be okay? Okay. And we will take questions, but I'm really worried. These women are so brilliant and amazing that we could easily spend the morning on a topic I originally groaned about, but it is very cool. Okay, so what I'm going to ask everybody to do quickly is your name, your company, and are you a newbie to this event, or how many years have you been here? And then I'm going to read two different definitions of product-led growth, and then we will see how they resonate or not with my experts. So I'm going to start with you, Miss Ashley Stepien.
Hi, I'm Ashley Stepien, and I lead marketing at a company called Ramp. And it's my second year in attendance. Really happy to be here.
Carrie Lou?
My name's Carrie Lou Dietrich. Is my mic working?
No.
Okay, my name's Carrie Lou Dietrich.
There we go.
I'm a former CMO. I was most notably the head of marketing that took Atlassian public. And now I advise hypergrowth companies, including 1Password, Segment, and Miro.
Great.
Oh, and it's my fourth year, I think.
Yay.
Hi, I'm Susan Ganeshan. I run marketing for a company called Clearwater Analytics that sells into the investment management space. This is my fourth CMO gig. Oh, great. And this is my first time at this event, and I'm so impressed.
Yay. Okay, well, so what we didn't get into is that we have, and we're about to, is that we actually have sort of a continuum of product-led growth experience exposure on this panel. So I'm going to read the definitions and then I'll tell you what I mean. And then I'm going to ask these ladies if it resonates or not. Okay. So this is what made me groan when I was like, oh, freemium. I've never been able to do freemium. Okay. The simplest definition, a software product that allows an end user to start using the product without any restrictions. Might be free, freemium. Some examples include Slack, Zoom, and really one of the OGs of product-led growth, Atlassian. So we have one of the original architects. A broader definition, it's a go-to-market strategy that relies on using your product as the main vehicle to acquire, activate, and retain customers. Sounds a lot like getting good product market fit, right? Whether you can do a freemium model or not. So I'm going to ask my panel, and we can go down the road, although I told them yesterday I hate going down the road and back. So we're going to mix it up, but we'll start with down the road. Which of those definitions connects for you, Ashley? You kind of have a little bit of a hybrid at Ramp, and you've been at plenty of other places that are PLG oriented.
Yeah, I think that first definition is the purest definition of it. But I think the second definition is the way that it's evolved in a way to fit the market and the way that all companies can embrace product-led growth and apply it to your mix.
So are you a pure PLG?
I have been in my previous life a pure PLG. We've all been chasing the Atlassian dream. I think Atlassian did the best job of kind of showing what's possible with PLG. And now I'm a hybrid model where at my company we have both self-serve as well as upmarket and enterprise. So we're applying that across the board.
Great. Carolyn?
Okay, I think my mic still doesn't work.
Double mic'd and still.
Okay, well, so
Let's go to Susan, and then we'll come back to the
Okay,
OG.
great. Sorry about that. So I actually grew up in technology as a product marketer, product manager. So my first job, my first really significant job was 13 years at a company called Web Methods, and I ran product management there. So with that in mind, I know the aspects of a product-led growth company, but this new phenomenon around it was not something we did all the way back in 2000. I'm way too old. But I would say that there are a lot of my role on this panel, I'm viewing my role on this panel of, if you're trying to transition there, to watch for some gotchas that I've tried over the years. But Atlassian is where it's at. So tell us what you did.
So I think it makes sense to potentially tell you a little bit about the Atlassian story, which is that two smart college kids never wanted to work, never wanted to wear a suit, and so they started a company in Australia making software for issue tracking. And they didn't know anything about hiring salespeople, and they didn't think they would like them, so they decided never to hire any and just sell it online. And they also were in Australia, so it was expensive and hard to hire salespeople in the United States or Europe, where they might have to do the majority of their selling. So they created this online model with the purpose of having the product sell itself. And so I would say there's different flavors because it's not just freemium. A lot of what we did was trials. So the goal is a person can come to the website, they can research everything. From a marketing perspective, it broke everything I knew and had done before Atlassian. We collected no information on anyone ever. Every single thing was ungated. The only goal of every marketing activity was to drive towards having them click start my trial. And then marketing was very involved with product in the experience people had in that first 7 days or 30 days or whatever different orientation we tried. And so trying to get people to log in, set up the first issue, invite other people and collaborate on an issue. Each step we identified what are the 4 or 5 aha moments where someone really connects with the product and then wants to buy it and then wants to share it with others. So I would say Slack is the other company that I think did product-led growth exceptionally. And one of the advantages is that it allows you to scale so quickly because it's not about hiring another person who goes out and makes phone calls. It's the only limitation is, your website capacity. And at times, if you have some amazing offer, you could take your website down, but that would be the best case scenario. And then just a little bit more of the background on Atlassian, because I think it's relevant. Atlassian had a totally different business structure, which supported product-led growth. And the business structure was
pay almost nothing for marketing and sales, and invest all that money in product. So the Atlassian model is 15% of revenue is sales and marketing together, which is half or a third of most companies. And the R&D is 35%, which is triple most companies. So the model is investing in the product so the product is so amazing it sells itself, and invest as little as possible in sales and marketing so that you can make your features even more attractive to kind of have this snowball effect, the land and expand model. And the only other thing that I'll add is a lot of it also then is driven by word of mouth and community and engagement. And part of the reason it worked for Atlassian was because of the audience we were selling to. So it's technical developers, sometimes SMB, although we sold to a lot of businesses, but individuals at those businesses who could buy on their credit card by themselves. And so I think, now I advise a number of companies who do hybridized models where they're trying to get a trial online or they're trying to engage someone online, and then a salesperson follows up and maybe sells a bigger deal, offers discounts. But if your target audience doesn't want to buy in a self-serve model, product-led growth is irrelevant. If you have the right target audience, they hate sales. Developers were thrilled to never talk to a salesperson, to get their demo, to get their trial, to get their information, just buy and be on with their business. And so I think those are some of the critical factors of the structure of PLG.
There's so much in there to unpack. I think there's to tie it back to Latany's remarks, this idea of it might be the right strategy for you or not. Let's start with the market. What's the problem you're solving, and what do those people want from you, and how then do they want to experience and touch your product? But I think that idea, and again, I went a little too deep on this maybe, but not as expert as them, but there is this principle that keeps coming up as you dig into PLG around viral, right? Having your product be viral, and different from the network effect, right? This is about Ashley's telling me, I love this thing. What are you using for ABM? 6 Sense. Ooh, I should use 6 Sense. I mean, that's truly how I started using 6 Sense. Susan, I think.
Same way.
Yeah.
Because
So
of you.
Right. Now, that's the concept of virality, but for most of my businesses, that's not how people want to buy 6-figure enterprise multi-year contracts. But having a product that delights as the barriers to delivering software get lower and lower, that I think is incredibly powerful. Ashley, you talked about the idea when we spoke yesterday about how being product-focused, product-led changes marketing's relationship with product.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've spent like the last 30, 40, 50 years talking about our relationship with sales. But, Latany touched on it too. There's this other relationship with product where historically it's an interesting loop with product, right? Like we give them market insights, they build the roadmap, and then we inherit the product and we take it to market. But with product-led growth, it's a tighter partnership. Your alignment is a little more every step of the way. So the way we do it is I have a growth marketing team, and then product has a growth product team. And they are in lockstep. They might as well be one team. But we are looking at the customer experience from all angles in and outside of the product. And we partner to make sure that it is cohesive and that every step of the way. So for instance, if they're logging in, what is that product experience? And also, what is marketing doing to support it? Are they getting an in-app message welcoming them? Are they getting an email saying, hey, you just logged in for the first time, congratulations? What are the triggers that we have set up to complement that entire product experience? And that's a new relationship that I think a lot of marketers have not leaned into enough. We've kind of let product own that. But in reality, we have such a good pulse on the way our customers want to be spoken to that partnership is probably more important than it's ever been. And that's been really fun for me as a marketer to lean into that side of the house versus just the sales side of the house.
What does that look like, right? We talked about don't mess with my roadmap. I'm getting product folks are getting hit from so many places, as Latany said.
I mess with the roadmap all the time.
I had a feeling you were going to
but It's from a place of we are getting a ton of insights and analytics on how people are engaging with the product or not engaging with the product, and we sit down with the product team to say like, hey, this experience is breaking down here, and luckily they're getting those insights too. But it's more about coming together to talk about how we can solve it together, not just build something in the product. There are a lot of times that marketing can lean in to fix a product problem, and I think that we don't always take ownership of that.
The other thing we often don't take ownership of is customer advisory boards, and we'll do user groups or things that are championing our customers, but not necessarily advisory boards where they're telling us exactly what they want to build. And I've built out many advisory boards over the years. I think that the critical thing in building those is it being a partnership between product and marketing. Not so that marketing, just orders the food and, sends out the invite, but rather that marketing is got a seat at that table for the advisory board. Because product people will tend to, in my experience, I was one, they'll tend to look internally or listen to the engineers. Oh, the engineer says we can use AI here and ML here, and well, who cares if no one needs that or wants that? And so you've got to get them to think outside the walls of your business. One of my favorite all-time quotes is from Pragmatic Marketing, where Steve Johnson says the answer to your question is not in your four walls.
Mm-hmm.
And so bringing them along arm in arm through a customer advisory board, telling them how to run one, telling them how to calculate, voices. Whose voice should matter? Just because someone spent a lot of money with you, should their voice matter than somebody who spent a little bit of money with you?
And I think that I'm going to come back to you, Carolee, but that ties to this idea of what's the market telling you. And I tell my team every day, not every day, but at the start of every meeting, our job is to be the voice of the market to the business, and then the voice of the business to the market. The leads follow that if we're telling the story properly, right?
And we had talked about this before in preparing. Part of product-led growth is treating the user with utmost respect instead
User
of just
versus
the buyer. So in a model where you're trying to figure out what's going on in product, the product advisory board might say, hey, we want this new feature. But the product growth team might say, hey, when people land, they don't even know where that feature is. The way that, when you go into a product and then something pops up and it says, hey, there's 3 new features, try these 3 new features. That's the type of thing that Ashley's talking about. And what I would say about the product-led growth companies, I think, that have been really successful is it's a testing mindset. It's not about having a hypothesis and executing your hypothesis. It's about testing all of the options against each other and constantly testing. And we talked a little bit about what's applicable if your company's not product-led growth. And I think how we make really sophisticated websites is one of the steps towards making ourselves more product-led growth-ish and selling that to recruiters. Our website, we've done a ton of testing on the homepage to see how to get people to engage with things. We're trying different offers. We're guiding people through the website experience differently. We're really watching carefully what the end user does, not just what people say, because we've all been in those situations where you have the best sales rep or SE in the field who has to customize a demo because the product doesn't actually work and you're going to sell it to like the whale of the quarter. Product-led growth is the inverse. How do we make it so easy for the user that we don't that they are buying it instead of us telling them what it should be?
I'm going to take a second to say we will take questions, and if you're online, we miss you very much, and you can put them in the chat and they will surface them here, although I have to squint, but she's using a very generous font, which I appreciate. So to that point, I think, and I should have noted, why is it so hot, right? What is it, just this trendy thing? Well, the profile of companies that are over invested, if you're a sales-led company, in engineering, those look like really good balance sheets, right? Because you've created something differentiated and sticky, and as Latney reminded us, your sales team is your most expensive source of revenue, right? So how do you want recurring revenue, whether you can be product-led growth or not? You want a product that your people love, right? I write a lot of checks for software, but I'm not in it all the time. And I might say, hey, could you check out 6 Sense? But if my team doesn't love it, I'm not buying it. that's not worth the headache of losing great people, right? We need to think about this from an employee experience perspective. And I think that's what's so powerful about that user buyer dynamic you talked about.
Yeah. So I just wanted to comment on something you said, because one of the reasons now I'm addicted to product-led growth. Like, I will never go to a company that is not at least having some element of that. And what's so beautiful from a marketing perspective about product-led growth is we own so much more of the revenue cycle than in a traditional marketing sales model. Um, I get to own the number at the end of the day. Sales is a channel. I think, like what Latney said, is really important. For me, sales is a channel to get some deals done, but I have so much more ownership than I've ever had before. Now, to your point about users versus buyers, that's really, I think, core. Carrie Lou brought it up into the way that we think about it too. You can sell your tool all day long to the person who's going to sign the check. But if the users and the influencers aren't bought in as part of that experience, it really doesn't matter. So creating some element of product-led growth, I think, is important for all companies, no matter your model, even if you don't have a freemium. At Pendo, one of my previous companies, we were a very traditional sales marketing model, a market model. There was not really a way to do freemium in some sort of effective way. So we faked it. We basically did like a deep fake product experience, for lack of a better word, like an intense interactive demo that allowed the users to go in, mess around with the tool, feel like they were having a freemium experience. When in reality, they weren't even logged into the real tool.
She promised us she'd go track down the name of that. That's
There's
like
a
real
tool that,
secret weapon.
what it?
Reprise?
Yes.
Reprise.
Reprise. Thank you.
Reprise. For
Yeah.
those
So
who
you can actually fake a product-led experience. And the beautiful thing about that is when people do go through that sort of deep fake product experience, you are handing over the most qualified leads ever. And so we talk a lot about PQLs, product qualified leads. And that's the gold right there. Somebody who's already fallen in love with your product, so that you hand it over to a salesperson and they're like, where do I sign? And that's like the gold right there that I think as marketers, we're all kind of striving for. Let's just hand them leads that are ready to sign the check.
Which can be hard if you're moving from a sales model to a product-led growth model. So in that instance, which a lot of companies are trying to do right now, the sales team doesn't want you to have them, they want a demo. That's their reason to have a meeting, right? That's what you hold back so that you can meet in person and show them. And so that conflict between letting people kind of go through the process and jumping in on it and having someone call right away, that's the biggest conflict right now between the traditional sales model and the product-led growth model.
But there's so much we can take away from product-led growth that we don't, many of us don't have the fortune of being in a company that's product-led growth. That idea of driving people to a single call to action down your website, right? You're trying to drive them to download or use that product and trial. Figure out your call to action that's going to generate the highest lead leads and do that. I did that at Granicus, my previous company, and 80% of the people that requested a demo, we called it See It Live instead of request a demo because no one wants to be demoed to. They would convert into opportunities. It was our highest conversion rate. Think about references as well. And that entire process, because you talked about, at Atlassian, it was about getting the users to tell other users. My current company, 20% of our leads actually come, and actually our won deals, 20% of our won deals come from references. So you guys don't know who Clearwater is, except for, Atlassian uses Clearwater, Snowflake uses Clearwater. You guys might not know that, but they do. And if you're in that industry, you know us because our references are so high. Our NPS is off the chart, So those are the things we can think about as marketers. And then when it comes to delighting our customers, and we can think about, as Latney said, that entire chain of the funnel. Are we constantly keeping them involved? It's not about just their daily product use, but what else are we doing to keep them as a community and keep them empowered, learning from each other, wanting to socialize with each other, stickiness. How do we keep that going?
And really self-service.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea that people, 75% of the sales model now is online. People want to research, they want to self-serve, they want to see how it works, and that works in a sales model too. It's part of mapping journey and really having the right things to the right people at the right time.
I think that we've all lived with that truth, right? That by the time we're all trying, if you're not in a PLG company, those salespeople want to have the conversation and feel important, but they can't do that if we're not. But most of our buyers, as Latany reminded us, are not ready for that conversation. And the old day, like when I started, it was 60%. I think it's now 75%. So to be able to touch and feel, it's amazing.
And they don't want to be sold to. I just want to mention one more thing, and that's demos. I copied Cvent on this. This is pretty much what I do as a CMO, is just go find beautiful, wonderful, amazing people like you and copy you. So I did that with Cvent, and they just ran weekly demos. And those demos were their highest conversion. I've brought that to every company I've been at, and every single time the team goes, oh, wow, we never thought of that. Just weekly demos give people a chance to understand the product without that, hard-hitting salesperson in their face. And then those people convert at very, very high rates.
And you lose the looky-loos,
Yeah.
that just want to see what's going on, and you don't waste the cycles, time on that. There was a question. It says,
it was about market tactics to understand your market. How do you understand your whole market? Understanding the total addressable market, understanding what makes users tick, doing win-loss analysis, talking to references, holding customer advisory boards. What else do you do?
For product-led growth, it's website, like how people are actually using the product on website. So a lot of tracking within the product. But I think they were asking about tools for it. Testing,
said,
which I would say, again, on this, I think the future isn't product-led growth because most companies can't get rid of the sales org. And I would tell you the secret is it only worked because the founders own the whole company. Every board meeting, the board was like, hey, it's time for sales. No company's ever done this. It's time for sales. Are you ready for sales?
Right.
I mean, a good 2 or 3 years, we said no. And then we started a sales org that was just a renewal sales org. And now we've added more salespeople. But it's not going to work both ways. And so it's really important to think about how do you just create the testing mindset inside of marketing while still not destabilizing sales, who can't have you testing and changing everything. They need a methodology and a consistency to hit their quota every quarter, but you can do a ton of testing inside of marketing to get smarter and better using those principles.
Okay, I'm getting the all font, so I'm going to ask each of our amazing, brilliant ladies for one piece for our audience. Mm-hmm.
They were, try us out, developer, product-led growth, all the way, and now they've been
Adding sales.
Yeah.
struggling adding the enterprise sales function. I'm curious how that.
I lived that.
Yeah.
I lived that at my last company. Yeah. We were 100% product-led growth. And when the board yelled at us, it was time for sales, we were like, okay, it's time for sales. So we didn't really stand up to it. But it's a struggle because part of it is from a product standpoint, you have to make sure there's clear differentiation of what you're getting for a self-serve versus an upmarket. And that takes time. You cannot rush into it. The product roadmap, you probably need to look a year or longer out to figure out what is the enterprise product versus the self-serve freemium model. And that is very hard to understand. And then secondly, and we've talked about this, is kind of the fight that you get into with sales and then self-serve leads. How do you route that? How do you keep that from becoming a big blow up? I'm literally getting pings on my watch right now because it's happening right now with the self-serve funnel. But part of that is we have a really tight operations team who's watching exactly where these leads are going. We have tight qualification rules to figure out if enterprise, if it should be routed to enterprise versus if it's self-serve. It's painful, but I think as long as the product is there, like the value is clear about what the enterprise offer is, and then you have strict operational rules on what the funnels look like and when they diverge, you will make it happen. But I think similar to going from full enterprise to product led, there's just going to be pain with it, but you can get there.
And I'm speaking on a panel at SaaStr with Sarah Varney of Twilio, and we've been talking about their sales-led growth and product-led growth. And one of the reasons Twilio added sales was because they needed more account management. So the problem of product-led growth is that you don't have embedded relationships across the team and with the executives, which is the strength of the sales whale hunting model. And so the combination of those two is what will make them successful. And they're always going to fight over leads, because if there's not enough leads for the sales team, they're just going to steal and pull and pillage from the product-led growth timeline. And so as soon as someone starts a trial, a sales rep's going to be like, hey, want to talk to me? Hey, you look like a hot lead. So that is what you'll have to protect against. And the only real protection is accurate ideal customer profile funneling, right? If you have SMB or small companies or technical buyers that want to be buying that way and maybe are too expensive to serve with a salesperson, you should route those that way. And if you have fantastic enterprise Fortune 500 companies who are trying it, you should route them to a salesperson and do a bigger deal where you help them and offer more discounts and more support and
Just
and
having really
services.
solid rules matter.
Rules,
Shared rules, agreed upon game plan,
Agreed upon
because
rules.
otherwise there will be that robbing, stealing, trying to
Yeah, I'm
pillage
getting
each
in
other.
trouble, but Claudia handed you the mic, so I'll take one more question, and then we're going to do quick. Okay.
Not
Hi.
working. Is it working? I'm working.
Oh, I thought
Okay.
of you. That's Trisha from Drift, and they've been
We've been doing the same thing.
yes, and
but
you're doing enterprise.
yeah, we're doing enterprise. But I would say back to Latney's presentation, this is the place where as CMOs we can step up to be the chief market officer.
Yes.
What are we doing? Why are we doing it? What is marketing doing? What is product doing? Does the product have the right features to go to the enterprise? And if not, like what are we doing in between to create market air cover, to fill that void before sales can sell, or to highlight what features we need, right? Oh, well, we can take our existing product now to these verticals, but not to these others. And I've done that and really elevated, the role of marketing when I was at Checker. We were going from on-demand into enterprise, and the product wasn't there. It was like, this is crazyville. But we identified like the right target places to go and then to build from there.
Awesome.
NPS, right? You
Right.
really need great
Retention.
customer insights to do great customer or product-led growth.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. One tweet, a piece of advice for the audience. I'll start with you, Susan. We'll work our way down.
I'll go back to the answer to your question is not in these four walls. So read every single NPS survey that you get back, your CSAT surveys, the win-loss. If you haven't started win-loss analysis, figure that out. Don't let the salespeople do it. You cannot trust them. Yeah, but get that outside invoice.
The product has to sell itself.
I'll just say two things. If you're intimidated by product-led growth and you haven't heard of Reforge, that's where I got my education. It's amazing. It's invaluable. It's an education resource. So Reforge, check it out. And the second thing is, if you're intimidated by it, start with your website. It's a great place to implement experiments, just like maybe the product team would within the product. So you can apply the product-led growth mindset to your website as a starter. Yeah.
And I think all the education comes under growth marketing. It's growth marketing and growth, and the growth teams can sit either in the marketing team or the product team or both. And so that's the type of education you're looking for if you're trying to learn about it or hire those people.
I know, and I have grown. I was a non-believer naysayer, and I think there are lessons applicable for the enterprise sale all the way through. So thank you, ladies, for making me a convert. Thank you for great content and sharing your perspective. Thanks for the chance to be here.